So,
all right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Premier Madden League Podcast. This isn't really the league podcast, though. This is more the draft podcast, and I'm joined by my man, Aaron, also known as the Bucks owner. I'm really hoping her name's Aaron because that was just the first name that came to my mind.
it is, actually. It is. So, yeah.
I've seen it a couple of times, and I was like, Anthony? All right. Anyways, man, what's up, man? It's good to have you back.
What's going on? Yeah, appreciate having me on, man. So,
yeah, man, no worries. We had a fun time talking about the offense last time, and now we get to talk about the defense where the fun happens. There's a lot to kind of talk about because I feel like there's a little bit more I don't know what the term. Anytime I try and say this term, I think malleability, but really I'm just thinking the word flexible. There's a lot of flexibility on defense because people do different things with different people, right? We were just talking a little bit about linebackers. One guy might be a god user linebacker. Another guy might be great for off ball. Some guys don't use their linebackers, so that guy may not matter to them, and we'll get into those specific players later. We have guys like the Madden god himself, the Niners, who uses safety. So he might be looking for the fastest safety, screw every other rating. Let's go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's always interesting with defensive drafts because people are just so different. Whereas offense, it's very, as much as we try not to be cookie cutter, there's players that are good, and then there's players that don't work. There isn't too much on offense that I've seen in between, whereas on defense, with enough skill and a certain play style, things can work. So I'm excited to talk about some of the guys who fit those molds today. So let's jump right into it, man. Let's talk about the proclaimed most important position on the defensive side of the ball, and that's pass rush, and more specifically, edge rush. So we're looking here, obviously you have to go through these front seven positions and kind of discern who can play outside linebacker, who can brush the passer. It looks like you got it kind of organized for me. But let's talk about some of the premier pass rush guys, 4-3, 3-4. Who can I put out there and just expect to put up 12 sacks day one kind of guys?
So you have, there's a lot of talent on, especially at the defensive end and at the left end. And if we're talking about guys who play in any type of system, guys who come in and rush, the biggest one that really stands out for me is probably, I believe his name is Cleveland Farrell from Clemson. He's a left defensive end, senior red shirt. He's 6'5", 267, and he's well balanced. You know, he can finesse, he can power rush, block shed, everything you need as a defensive end. He can do it. You can put him in a 3-4. Might be a little bit slow, but nonetheless, he was going to get to the passer. He's going to pass rush pretty well. And then the other one, a little bit undersized. I think if this guy would have been 6'4", 6'5", playing a big division, Sutton Smith from NIU, he could be somebody who can go in there and get to the passer. Super athletic, can cover, and he's just, I think you're all around guy, but just being at 6'1" is a little bit of a red flag for me. So, but those two players are probably your best pass rushers in this upcoming draft.
Yep, that means Sutton Smith. So, yeah, like there's guys, the linebacker position's getting smaller, right? We've seen that from off-ball linebackers, guys converting from safety, Deion Buchanan, just, the speed guys interior, Roquan Smith being one. And then on the edge rusher, you've seen them kind of get thinner as well. Guys like Leonard Floyd, but like you mentioned, they're long. Leonard Floyd is like 6'5", really, really long guy, whereas Sutton, it's like you're underweight and you're undersized. So, but the last big person that I remember, not an edge rusher, but they were like, oh, he's a little underweight and undersized, was Aaron Donald. So don't let that stop you from taking your guy on the D-line. So let's talk about what are some of our late round guys. Maybe they're not and we can hop over to right end too if you wanted to talk a little bit about them. But guys that guys that we can go in the third or fourth round, and maybe they are not as flexible for scheme, but what they're really good at, they're good at.
Right. Okay. So it's a very deep class. As like I said, for the pass rusher, you got the two best ones who were Sutton and then the guy from Clemson. But there's a whole bunch of guys who come in here and really are either great at being a finesse type player or just overpowering. And one of the players that I really like, a little bit undersized, but he has that length that we talk about as far as being that edge rusher or being in that 4-3 is senior left end Brian Burns from Florida State. He is super athletic, very his pass moves, rushing, everything he does is done with speed and finesse. So I think he's somebody that you could look at as possibly being a third, fourth round player who could come in and contribute in his rookie year in situational type things. And the other one would be a right end, would be Raquan Davis. I don't know if that's pronounce his name, but from Alabama, right end. This guy is more of your run stuffer. He could probably mainly in a 3-4, but he's strong. Guys who love to pound the ball. If you're in a division who loves to run the ball, this guy's going to help you out. And you could probably get him maybe in the second, third round if he might slip. So he's somebody to watch out for.
Right. Now, it's hard to see those Bama guys drop too far because everybody's so familiar with the name and the Bama brand. And then on to Brian Burns, kind of reminds me of Josh Sweats, the also FSU guy who's a real athletic pass rusher. I think he ran maybe a 4.4, 4.5. He's an Eagle. I don't know if he's an Eagle in our league, but another Florida State guy. So we talked about some of the edge guys. Let's talk about the Fat Boys, right? I think you're right in that Raquan Davis might just be a little bit too big and heavy to play edge. He probably will lead off the defensive or the interior line group. Now we have another Clemson guy, Dexter Lawrence. So these Clemson guys, man, for the last couple of years, they just churn out defensive end talent. Now, is Lawrence expected to be kind of up there with those guys in the past, or where's he sitting, as well as maybe some of the other interior linemen?
There's two defensive interior guys who really, are probably going to be the best one. And, you had the kid from Alabama who could play, that defensive end, but more suited for inside. But even if he goes into the inside, he's still the third best prospect, I would say. And then because you have Jeffrey Simmons, who's a senior from Mississippi State. And then, like you said, you have the kid from Clemson, Lawrence, who is an athletic, strong, just overall great prospect. And I think he could go along the lines of being one of those better Clemson players that come out who really dominate on the defensive line. And I think he's probably actually going to be your best prospect. He's got size. Guy's huge, 6'5", 342 pounds, right. Super strong. Probably one of the faster defensive tackles in this class. So he's just overall your best prospect, the guy who would go in there and we talk about being versatile and doing a whole bunch of things. He could play, in the defensive end to the defensive tackle on run situation. So he's all around, I think, the best prospect at the interior.
Got you. And a guy that may have come out last year but ended up staying, Jeffrey Simmons from Mississippi State, 6'4", 302 pounds. You have him second on your D tackle board. What is your kind of overall look at Simmons as a prospect?
Simmons overall, he's not as strong as Lawrence, but he's strong. One of the stronger guys. And just I think if Lawrence didn't come out in this or wasn't in this draft class, Simmons would be number one. But overall, I think he reminds me of Fletcher Cox is the best way to kind of put it. He's going to be a great block shedder, going to go in there, just overpower guys. It's just, again, Lawrence just being the better prospect is the only reason why Simmons is number two. But I think they're both great guys who go in there and contribute from day one. So right. Good prospects there.
Yeah, a whole 40-pound difference between the two, which is pretty massive. So
yeah. The biggest thing on that too is the fact that there's, with the 40-pound difference, you would think that there would be some type of decline athletically, but Lawrence is still right up there, maybe even more athletic than Simmons at that weight. So that's pretty impressive.
Got you. Yeah, and the league is evolving to these guys, like we mentioned Aaron Donald earlier, now Fletcher Cox. These guys that. As the league gets faster, so do the big boys. So being able to not have to sacrifice speed for that size is definitely a refreshing thing. So let's get on to these off-ball linebackers, right? I think the guy that we're the most excited for, I wouldn't even be surprised if he went top 5, is LSU's Devin White. Now, LSU is known for their defensive talent everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We've seen Pat Pete. We've seen Tyrann Mathieu. We've seen Deion Jones, if I'm not mistaken, was an LSU Tiger. what sets Devin White apart from the former LSU guys and as well this draft class?
Well, Devin White, he's a true sophomore. I'm sorry, a true senior. And just I did a report on him as being for one of the prospect spotlights, and I did a full breakdown on him, and he's just like a well-balanced prospect. He could do everything. He can cover, he can hit, he can run sideline to sideline. You have a fast running back who that people love to hit the flats with. He's going to be right there with them, and it's just crazy to think that a guy this size. He's not the tallest guy. He's only 6'1" compared to how everybody loves those 6'3", 6'5" middle linebackers. But he's fast and he's agile and he's strong. So it's just that rare blend of size, speed, and his ability to play football. And he's one of the few linebackers in this class that can play all three positions. In the linebacker, and he might even be able to play a deep set. He might be just as fast as some of the slower safeties in the league. So that says a lot about Devin White being, to me, the best linebacker prospect, period.
Right. And we see guys popping up on this list here from schools like LSU and Miami and Bama. Like those are the common ones. Now, there's a guy, maybe a smaller school football wise, Arizona, Colin Schooler. You have him 8th on the middle linebacker. Once again, a little bit on the small side, 6 foot tall, 238 pounds, putting him probably in the lighter side. Is there anything about him or maybe some of the other guys that we might find in the later rounds? Linebacker seems to be the harder position to find a lot of talent at late. So is Schooler one of the guys to look out for, or there's some other names that we should be looking for when we get into the 4 to 7 rounds of the draft?
Schooler, he's only a junior, so I don't know if he's going to declare or not, but just out of how can I put it? From a talent-wise, that's why he's there at the number 8 linebacker. But he could go in there. He's not super athletic, but he's athletic enough to be, to put in situations where he can go and make plays. Very fast twitch player, and I think if he stays a year, he's probably going to be one of the better linebackers next year. Again, he's only a junior. But another guy who I think is going to be a really good late round guy is middle linebacker Joe Bashi Jr. from Michigan State.
Yep.
Yeah, and you want to talk about speed? This guy has it. He's 6'2", 241, and he's probably the fastest linebacker in college right now. And he's not as quick as White, but he's faster. And so, depending on how well you are able to use it, I'm pretty sure you can make up with that. But overall, he's probably going to be your fastest linebacker coming out. And I think teams who value speed on the defensive side would be somebody that he will definitely be on people's radars. And as far as, the finding the linebackers, I think there's going to be a whole bunch of talent here. And I think you're actually going to be able to find some really good talent at any linebacker position, from 1 all the way to 7, even undrafted. So if you miss out on some of the, top tier guys, you'll find some guys who can contribute.
Absolutely. And the last group of guys in the linebacker position I want to talk about is teammates from UCLA. I think Keyshawn Lucier South, who is you're talking about height, those guys that really like those height users, 6'4", 238 pounds, and then his teammate on the outside, Jalen Phillips, another guy, 6'5", 248 pounds. So the Twin Towers out of UCLA. Are they targets if you're looking for purely a user linebacker here in this draft, or where do they fit? And then if I am looking for a user linebacker, who am I targeting here?
Well, for Lucier South, he's got the height, but I just don't see him having the speed. He's not going to be your ideal user linebacker. And even at that, he's not going to be somebody you want to be put in coverage situations because he is going to get burned. If anything, I might see him making the move, switching to a defensive end or being more of a pass rusher. But even at that, he's a little bit undersized, 6'4", only 238. So, as for his other teammate, Phillips, he's only a junior. I think he can go in there, and if he can, if he stays another year, he's going to be one of those guys who are going to be, one of the better prospects next year. But overall, he's a solid prospect. But for the absolute user, linebacker that people would be looking for, it would probably have to be, let's see here. You got some pretty good options here. I would say we're probably looking at Caleb Kelly. He's 6'3", 232, not the fastest guy, but he's very agile. And for those guys who like to kind of, do a little circling around, moving around, he's going to be great at that, to be able to make up that speed, and he has the height. So I think he would be a good user. And another guy would be, if he decides to go pro, is middle linebacker Baron Browning from Ohio State, 6'3", 243, and just overall quickness. Is that what that's it right there. So if you want agility, quickness, he would be the guy. But he's only a junior, so I don't know if he would declare. So,
gotcha. Let's move on to the defensive back core here. Look, we're sitting at pick, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 20. I need the best DB on the board. Who's the guy? Who's jumping off the sheets at everybody? Who's got everybody excited? Whether it be a trade up, but who's going to be the guy that I can go and kind of shore up my secondary with, or even rely to lead my secondary?
Well, if this is the draft, or if this is the year you need a cornerback, this is probably not going to be your best draft. So, if the best prospect's only a junior redshirt. So even at that, we don't know if he's going to declare, and that would be Byron Murphy from Washington. And, he's 5'11", 183. He's got pretty good speed, but even at that, I wouldn't consider him one of the, like a premier lockdown corner, such as where you had Greedy Williams last year. There's not a caliber like that coming out this year. So it's going to be tough to kind of gauge on drafting that, lockdown corner. In here, I think in this draft class, what you're going to be looking for is players that can fit a certain role, not necessarily do everything, but be good at one specific thing, whether it's, being in a zone defense or a man cover, or you need somebody to be, shore up your run tackling defense. So, but the best prospect, I think, athletically and overall talent-wise would be probably Darnay Holmes from UCLA. He's a junior, and he's super fast, the fastest guy out here. So, if you play in a division where, speed kills, if you have to go against Tyreek Hill or something, this would be the guy who can probably, I wouldn't say, match up right there, but definitely be right behind him in any type of pass situation. So, but again, not the deepest draft class for cornerbacks in this year.
Right. Yeah. It looks just like, there's nobody that jumps off. Obviously, Byron would be nice. Washington definitely is making a case for DBU in recent history with guys like Marcus Peters, Kevin King, right? What's his name? Sidney Jones. So Murphy kind of fits with the history there, the precedent of cornerback. So, but if he doesn't come out, like you said, it might be a mad dash for Darnay Holmes, who just due to a weak class, being young and lighting up the 40, if there's a time for him to come out and go get
that is true.
One, that's the kind of guy you probably want to look after. Got a short guy out here, another Washington, his teammate, the senior, Miles Bryant, 5'8". Is he another one of those guys, 5'8"? Is he another guy that's just going to kind of fit the mold here? I need maybe a nickel or something that, not, I wouldn't say one-trick pony, but not an all-around guy.
Yeah, well, obviously he doesn't have the size, but he's probably one of the better, well-rounded cornerbacks in this draft class. He's not fast though. That's the thing. So I would see him more and so as a being that nickel back in a zone, somewhere where he doesn't have to chase down people, but can just kind of guard a certain area and let his agility do his work. But again, he's not gonna stay foot with some of the fastest guys out there. So he's more of I think he'll fit into a zone and definitely into that corner. In that slot position. So.
Got you. Here's a trivia question for you. He's 5'8". What 5'9" NBA guard played cornerback for Washington.
Nate Robinson.
Hey, there you go. He's on top of it. On top of it. Last time I hit him with the little, I was going for a one-liner or a little segue, and I'm glad he picked up on it before he's just answered it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to these safeties, right? The biggest thing that I felt this Madden is you can't not have a talented safety. I've got Eric Berry, but having a guy back there that you can trust in these cover 1 situations or in your cover 3 situations is key to not having to constantly stay too high and just give you more to do. Now, one of the guys I've always liked, obviously my Georgia Bulldog bias there, has been J.R. Reed, but he just isn't that guy that I just described. Kind of underwhelming for an SEC safety, a 4.62. What kind of safeties are popping off the board here? Anybody we see that could potentially go in the first or second round, or first round high in the second round kind of deal?
There is one kid, and he's a senior from Ohio State, Jordan Fuller, free safety, 6'2", 204. And he's probably going to be your most complete safety prospect. And as you see, let me see, did I get his 40? Yeah, so he ran a 4.45. So he's got some speed. Definitely one of those guys where you can leave out there. That you can feel comfortable playing in coverage. But he's probably going to be the best, again, like I said, complete guy who can probably do a little bit of everything really well. And the really cool thing about him is that he can actually, he's very good in man too. So like if you need him to come down, play that slot, or if you have a tight end, he's somebody there that can go and man up on the bigger tight ends in there. And then, the J.R. Reed, yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. He's going to be just your run stopper. Not very fast. There's been times where he's getting burned out there. So, but he's going to be one of those guys where you can play in that, if you run, that nickel where you bring down that safety into the box. Yeah. So, yeah, if you run a lot of safety, you love doing that. He's basically a linebacker per se out there, but
right.
Yeah.
You mentioned Greedy Williams earlier. We already talked about his old teammate, Devin White. Let's talk about his other teammate, Grant Delpit, the junior who might be coming out. Looks like he's got some athleticism that kind of separates him a little bit. A taller guy, 6'3", a little light, but he ran a 4.49. If he comes out, is he going to kind of shoot up the board just due to a weak DB class, or does he still need a year before he's really ready for the next level?
Well, with it being a weak DB class, if he comes out, I mean, he's going to be right. I mean, he's going to be up there as being one of the better prospects. Like there's really no real complete prospect out there except, closest one being Fuller. But, at 6'3", definitely has the range, and he has just amazing agility and quickness. So, in that zone type defense, he's definitely going to be somebody you want there, and he's got the length. So if you've got guys who kind of jump ball situation, he's definitely going to be the guy. But I think as him, like you said, for the self-proclaimed Madden god who loves using safeties, you need that height and the agility, speed there. He can definitely go in there and be that user safety if you're looking for it. So that kid from LSU could possibly be late first round, maybe early second round pick. So
Gotcha. And the last guy I want to talk about here, another Washington guy. So we have, 2 corners from Washington and a free safety. So Washington's basically losing their entire secondary to the draft if Murphy leaves. Taylor Rapp. Now, looking at your top 50 from prior, you may not have updated this, but you had him pretty high. In fact, you had him as the first defensive player. After looking at his speed running a 4.61, is he still there for you? Or is there something that's keeping him up there despite the speed? Or do you think he drops now that the athleticism kind of shows itself to the combine?
Well, on the top 50 prospect, those are not necessarily NFL prospect. Those are just the top 50 best players in the country. And okay. He's one of them. Now, I probably should explain that earlier, so that's my fault. But Rapp, he's not fast. That's his problem. Yeah. But somehow he's able to go out there and make plays. So, he's just overall, well, you want to talk about a complete safety. If this guy, ran, just a 4.5 or something like that, he would definitely be, in the higher, mid first round pick. But that speed is an issue. So hopefully he can improve it. come in the combine, see if he can run a little bit faster. But if not, he's definitely somebody who might be able to defy the odds and still be able to, make plays at the next level with his speed. So, but complete player-wise, that's him. Just athletically, not there.
Right, and everybody's always looking for the next, Sean Saylor with blazing speed and cover, Ed Reed, guys that can just cover everywhere. But 40 time doesn't always tell the whole picture, right? You look at 4.6 and you think, wow, that's a slow time. You know who else ran a 4.6? Antonio Brown. And and Jerry Rice, quote unquote, ran a 4.6. So maybe the speed improves. But he might remind me of a guy, John Johnson out of the Rams, who is just fantastic all over the board. But that 85, 86 speed really throws people off, and it really scares them away. And if it's any lower than that, I think Rapp may not have a place in the NFL, and he might have to. I mean, you're right. You mentioned Big Nickel earlier. If he's got the coverage stats, he might find himself in a sub-package role, but nobody wants to draft a first-round DB to play him sub-packages, right?
Right.
So, I think that pretty much covers all our positions here. That's still real early. I don't even know what week we're in the college.
We're week 4. So I believe JT's got like week 5 games already up on our YouTube channel, but we're week 4, so I'll be doing a podcast on all the latest upsets and whatnot. So
Gotcha. So yeah, guys, remember, make sure you're peeking that stuff. Make sure whenever these end of the season hits that you're checking to see who's got awards, who's balling out, who's got all the big yards. Just kind of give you a little tell about how these guys are going to be come draft day, as well as especially you new guys, how we do the dev trait decider. Those things matter. How they're playing,
very much so.
The schools, how they finished, the awards they're getting, were they stat leaders or not? Those things matter a ton. So make sure you're paying attention to that in the college tab or the YouTube and the Twitter for all the scouting stuff going on. So, that pretty much wraps up, the defensive side of the ball. As we get further in the year, we can go a little bit more in depth, especially when we start figuring out who's coming out and who's staying. We talked about it last time. Guys like Tua Tagovailoa, Kyler Murray, Devin White's a senior, he's going to say, but some of the guys we talked about today. So that'll kind of help shape, the top 50 board whenever we're kind of building that up for the draft and getting an idea of who's going to be there in April and May. Well, thanks for joining me, bro.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for compiling all the info here for everybody. If they are listening, then you're going to be one step ahead of the game come draft day. You'll draft a guard first, second round. He'll suck, but when that 5th round comes around, you'll go get your guy and have yourself a starter. I think you know how that feels, right?
I do. Got a superstar right guard. So in the 5th round. So, digging that.
Hey, so there's the proof is right there. I think I almost said the proof is in the pudding, but that actually doesn't mean what I was saying. So I don't even know. Just using things wrong way, like malleability. So, all right. Well, anyways, that's it. Make sure you guys are peeking back here for the other episodes of the Premier Madden Podcast, where we talk about everything in the league. We talk about normal Madden stuff. I think this next one I'm going to bring up 4th down rules because I got into it with the guy in another league, so I wanted to get all the guys' opinions on that.
Okay.
It might be a little controversial as, me, I like to be real sim, and then you got Rob, who's a cheese ball, so he's not going to have it.
But I'm all about controversy, man. I was trying to start some in the chat.
Hey, sometimes you need a little bit, man. Sometimes the chat's dead. Man. So my other league average is like 1,500 messages a day.
Oh, my God.
It's insane. If you log in now and haven't been on it all day, you'd have to hours of catching up. So all right. Well, that'll do it for us. Catch us next time. And then if you're listening to this podcast on iTunes going, what the fuck are these dudes talking about? We are a Madden League. Stop bugging our Twitter with some extra shit. But if you want to join, we're a PlayStation Madden League. Go to join.premiermaddenleague.com. Later, guys.